The Secret School, Chapter 16. The next evening, the meeting of the Elk Valley School Board began on time. Mr. Jordan was there. So was Mr. Hawkins, the Methodist minister, a roly-poly man, too large for the dark suit he wore, and Mr. Morris, a Down Valley sheep rancher, dressed in his working clothes. By his side was Mr. Plumstead, looking very formal in his suit with high white collar, tie, and wire-framed eyeglasses. The four sat on a bench brought forward for the occasion. All 8 school children, including Herbert, sat in a row before the board. They had gotten there early. Their parents sat behind them. Though Herbert was there, his father wasn't. But some dozen other men and women from the valley were in the back of the room. When Mr. Jordan had arrived, he seemed surprised to see so many people. "Seems to me," Mr. Jordan opened the meeting by saying, "we've got ourselves quite a mess here. The school was supposed to be closed. But not only was it kept open, Ida Bidson was pretending to be the teacher." "And I'm afraid," interjected Mr. Plumstead, "I saw Miss Fletcher lock the front door. She gave me the key, and I gave the key to you, Mr. Jordan. In other words, the children have been trespassing on township property. How did you get in?" "Through the window," Herbert blurted out. One of the parents in the audience barely suppressed a laugh. "But may I ask," interrupted Mr. Hawkins, the minister, "if there's been any damage done to the building? You inspected it, Mr. Jordan. Any problems?" Mr. Jordan pointed to the boys' wardrobe. "When I came in the other day, a mule was in there." This time the crowd broke into laughter. "Did you do an inspection?" Mr. Hawkins persisted. "Well, yes, there was no damage," Mr. Jordan admitted, "but trespassing is trespassing, and a mule doesn't belong in school." "Oh, I don't know," Mr. Morris drawled. "I can remember a few two-legged ones from my days." The audience laughed again. "Now, sir," said Mr. Hawkins, "I can't speak about mules, but it seems to me these children were just trying to get on their education. Fact is, gentlemen, I didn't even know Miss Fletcher was gone. Leastwise, Mr. Jordan, you never informed me." "Did you know?" he asked Mr. Morris. "Only recently." "Too late to get a replacement," Mr. Jordan growled. "Didn't want to bother you." "I accept your explanation, sir," said Mr. Hawkins, "but I can't see how these children did any real harm. Fact, I'd say they were only doing what we'd want them to do, learn. And I say, more power to them." The audience applauded. Looking uncomfortable, Mr. Jordan said, "But this girl," he pointed to Ida, "this Ida Bidson was pretending to be a teacher. Can't pay the girl if she's got no license." "Did you pay her?" called someone from the audience. "Course not," Mr. Jordan said. "She isn't licensed." "Then, sir, she saved us a considerable sum of money, didn't she?" said Mr. Hawkins. Once again, the room erupted with laughter. Ida raised her hand. "What do you want?" Mr. Jordan demanded. "May I say something, please?" she said. "I don't know as how—" "Oh, let the girl speak," Mr. Morris suggested. "After all, you have accused her of wrongdoing." The other men on the board nodded. Ida rose from her bench seat. "Mr. Jordan, we didn't mean any harm. It's just that both Tom and I want to go to high school so badly. Tom's going to be an electric specialist. I want to be a teacher. But we need to finish our schooling for that. And we need to take our exit exam so we can go. The other children wanted to move on too and not repeat anything. We did everything by votes. Majority always ruled." "You can say that again," Herbert cried out. "In conclusion," Ida went on, "I should like to recite a poem Miss Fletcher taught us." "We don't do poetry at school board meetings," Mr. Jordan said gruffly. "Might be a noble thing if we did," Mr. Hawkins said. Red-faced, Mr. Jordan said, "Well, I suppose you can do your piece." Ida, hands extended, and gesturing dramatically as she spoke, began. "Do what conscience says is right. Do what reason says is best. Do what all your mind and might. Do your duty and be blessed. Ida paused and said, "Please, sirs, the term is almost over. Miss Sedgwick from the County Education Office said she'd come and test us all. We'd just appreciate it if you'd give us the chance to try." There was great applause from the crowd, even some stamping of feet. As Ida sat down, Tom whispered, "Pretty corny, but did a great old job." The members of the school board excused themselves and went out to the porch. While they were conferring, everyone else grouped around Ida, congratulating her. Finally, the four men trooped back in and sat down. "We've had our discussion," a grim-looking Mr. Jordan began. "We're going to let this secret school go forward for 2 more weeks with Ida Bidson as the teacher so that the children can take their exams. But that's the only reason." There were cheers from the audience. A beaming Ida stood up. Mr. Jordan held up a hand. Hold on. There are some conditions. First, the families whose children are involved must take responsibility for the school building and grounds. Second, we expect every child to pass their exams. If they don't, I want the whole valley to know it won't be the board's doing, it'll be the teachers." With that, Mr. Jordan promptly stood up and marched out the room. The other board members mingled with the excited crowd. Ida sat still for a moment and then allowed herself an enormous sigh of relief. "Guess you did it again," Tom said. Ida looked at her hands. "Thank you. I guess you are one airtight girl." Startled, Ida looked around. "What's that supposed to mean?" Tom grinned. "You know, swell." "Where'd you get those words?" He shrugged. "On the radio." Impulsively, Ida gave him a hug. Then she felt a rush of confusion, blushed deeply, and ran outside. The night sky, cloudless and moonless, was blossoming with a million stars. There seemed no end to them. "We won!" Ida exulted. "We won!" Then she checked herself. "No, not yet. I must pass the exam."